Taoiseach, you're very welcome to the Pride series as part of the Dublin Pride celebrations. It's your third time, if memory serves correctly, that you've joined us, and we're very appreciative of your time.
Very happy, and I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Look, I suppose as we gather here, you'll be aware more than most of the state of the world. We're in a very unsettled place at the moment, and the LGBT plus community certainly feels that. There is, unfortunately, pushback, global regression happening, including actually in our own European Union. So I suppose I'd like to begin the interview by acknowledging the anxiety and the concern that even here at home, many of our community are feeling in the face of that kind of growing polarisation that's happening.
I would share that concern. I mean, if you look back 10 years ago, marriage equality was a high point for openness, for toleration, and it was as if the country had arrived. The Gender Recognition Act, in addition to that. And the debate was much more, how would I put it, open, as I say, kinder, inclusive. There's been a coarseness of language, particularly in social media. There's been a sharpness, there's been a kind of a reaction to what happened, I suppose, 10 years ago in certain waters. That's what I perceive myself. And then within Europe, we've had the laws passed by Hungary, which are difficult to comprehend, and in a modern European state, you'd have legislation to ban a pride parade, for example. In the context of protecting children, it's, from our perspective, it's absurd. And that is a sign of certain governments appealing to certain interests or certain perspectives over and above others. There seems to be, in some quarters, a move to say things and take initiatives around electoral considerations or satisfying a particular electoral base. Whereas we must always be conscious in public discourse and in public debate about individuals, families, communities. We're all human beings. Human rights is universal. It applies to all. And we can't be differentiating or being endeavouring to create the other again, and having someone in a position where they are either verbally attacked or made feel uncomfortable, or worst case scenario, laws being passed to suppress people's expression of their identity.
So you'd be very clear, I suppose, in condemning those developments, banning a pride parade, as you said, under very highly offensive and highly dubious terms. There's an opportunity, if you like, for Ireland then to kind of be in the vanguard of the movement against those regressive developments. So could I ask you or invite you to take the opportunity, I suppose, to reaffirm Ireland's commitment to LGBT plus equality and to reject those very kind of polarising developments happening?
Certainly reaffirm Ireland's position, the Irish government's position. We're unrelenting in this, both nationally, domestically, and internationally. I mean, I did recently in a Euro interview with the Euronews and invited a sharp response from Viktor Orban, but I made it very clear that we were very concerned about this. As I have had in the past in discussions I've had at different times with different governments, Polish government before, the previous Polish government, and Hungary, and also in Uganda. And we fund, through the Department of Foreign Affairs, Irish Aid, we fund organisations who support LGBT plus communities internationally, or organisations who endeavour to protect the rights of LGBT plus communities globally. So we're very affirmative and positive in terms of our outreach in that regard, and we will continue to be.
And of course, we had at the end of last week, we had the launch of the new national LGBT plus inclusion strategy, and that calls for, as you'll be aware, a whole of government support underpinning LGBT equality. So again, I think your words would be reflective of that kind of across government commitment. I just feel that as a community, we feel that's very important in these times where support, unfortunately, even in the West, for want of another term, can't be taken for granted. So that very visible and that very proactive support, I think, has never been more important, and Ireland has such a role to play there.
It is, and as the world is changing, and it is, I mean, I'm worried about, on broader geopolitical grounds, about developments in the world. if you look at trade, it's very different. There's a growing kind of protectionism. There's been an undermining of United Nations and the various agencies under the aegis of the United Nations, and its authority has been eroded. So that's a concern for Ireland. So one of the ways of dealing with that is to work with like-minded countries.
Yes.
European Union member states, Canada, Norway, Iceland. There's many countries who are not going that way.
Yes.
So we shouldn't sort of fall into kind of a depression and say, well, it's all going wrong. Certainly there's negative trends and certain countries are going in the wrong direction. But there are a lot of countries out there who want to align on these fundamental principles and on the UN Charter. And that's where Ireland stands, and that's what we will continue to do, to engage in outreach with like-minded international partners with a view to pursuing the rights of people and protecting rights.
And in a way, Taoiseach, I think that kind of very much dovetails with the broader kind of, you mentioned geopolitical considerations there. There's no doubt that the attack or the assault on LGBT plus equality is very much part of a broader assault on democratic norms and values. So, when you talk about that internationalism and that cooperation with like-minded countries, we do feel that's very important because, like we've been talking about LGBT groups here in Ireland, have been talking with our colleagues in Hungary, for example. And, it's not just an attack, and it's so important that we stress this. It's not just an attack in our community. We're the canary in the coal mine, if you like allied to the ban on Budapest Pride, which, as you say, is just appalling in a European Union member state. They also have a law which is a so-called transparency law, as they call it, which really is to crack down on NGO, civil society in the country. If anything, actually, I'm told they're even more concerned about that, believe it or not, because that would permeate right through all their work. And as I say, I think that this debate has to be seen in that context. They're coming for the LGBT plus community, but it's the autocrats' playbook, I'm afraid.
There's a broader agenda there, in terms of suppression of civil society more generally. A healthy, mature democracy should always facilitate civil society in its myriad expressions. And very often politicians can get annoyed at times if someone goes up and says something or criticises, but that's a healthy democracy. I was at the Wheel conference the other day, with NICFA in Northern Ireland, and but like a number of organisations there that feel they have the freedom and authority to raise issues. And we see in certain areas where you don't have a flourishing civil society, you have weaker democracies.
Indeed.
And that is a concern more generally in some member state countries now, where leaders fear civic society as a threat to their own position.
And then I suppose you combine that with what really is kind of it never entirely went away, but the terrible tropes around the LGBT plus community. It's kind of, there's almost been an emboldening of that because of the global context, and I think that's something that we really have to guard against. I
think the nature of debate is changing, and reflecting on this myself, even from a political debating perspective, the opportunity for discussion, for teasing out, for exploring a person's concerns. Some people may have issues. There was a time when you talk through them in a meeting room, or it wasn't. But now people are coming at it with very fixed positions from the get-go. And on social media in particular, it's labelling, it's name calling, it's picking sides very quickly.
Yes.
Everything is woke, or everything is not woke, or everything is
whatever that term means.
I don't know what it means.
It's just.
But it's just a catch-all phrase to label and say that person's over in that corner, or not on our side. And I was brought up on the basis that debate was about, okay, I might come to it with ideas and my own views, but actually, at the end of the debate, if your views had changed somewhat, moderated somewhat, or nuanced, or you learned something new, that was the whole purpose of it.
It wasn't seen as a kind of a climb down. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But nowadays, like, it's either you're kind of in one position and it's very fixed, and the capacity for people to move is limited, and you see that. And I think social media is a factor in that, and the manner in which it's managed, in terms of how people utilise it, platforms and so on like that. Absolutely. And then people feel you're undermining free speech if you endeavour to try and moderate that, and you're not really. No one wants to moderate genuine, expression of views and perspectives, but there is a line between that and threatening people and inciting people.
You're absolutely correct, Taoiseach, and we'll come to that just in a moment. I think before we finish around the international piece, Talking to colleagues in Hungary, I suppose what they're very grateful that 20, I think, of the 27 member states, including Ireland, have now in very stringent terms called on the Commission to use whatever toolbox, I think is the term used, use all the measures that it can use. And then you'll also be aware that the Advocate General in the European Court of Justice issued a very strong opinion on the 2021 Hungarian law. And actually, Taoiseach, if you recall, the first time that we spoke as part of the series, it was when that law in 2021, which they're using as the basis now of the further crackdown, the Advocate General had a very strong condemnation that policy, that law simply isn't in line with any Article 2, I think, the most basic of the European Constitution. So, you know what I mean, it's very important, I suppose, that's recognised, but they are concerned with the Commission in this respect. They do feel that the European Commission needs to be more proactive. There's been very welcome and supportive statements, but they do feel that the Commission has been slow to use measures at its disposal to, I suppose, make clear to Hungary that this can't be governed. You know, this is not a way to behave in the European Union, and there are consequences if you behave like that. And of course, we have our own Commissioner, Michael McGrath, who has the Justice portfolio. Would you be of the mind to say that the Commission needs to be stronger and more proactive around Hungary?
I would. I understand I sense what's going on. I mean, I haven't been told this or anything, but my sense is, look, we have problems in the European Union. Hungary is a problem on Ukraine for the European Union. Has been persistently on its own in terms of perhaps what other member states endeavouring to stop initiatives. It doesn't sign up to any 27 member states in terms of condemnation of Russia, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And so there's a lot of issues the Commission has to deal with, to be fair to the Commission. Yes. It's a worry to the remainder of the EU as to where all this is going. What I mean by that is, this fundamentally impacts on the European Union's modus operandi for the future, in my view. So, for example, Germany have initiated a group, not because of LGBT plus issues, but because of more broader issues, to want to become one member state, hold back the Union on a whole lot of issues. You know, in terms of the modus operandi as to how the Commission operates, how the EU functions.
Yes.
So the veto, for example, is being questioned by some member states. Germany led a group where they want to reflect on, could you have more qualified majority voting to get things through and so on like that. The issue with the flagrant breach, in my view, in terms of the laws passed by Hungary and the breach of the EU legal framework, in our view, is there has to be consequences. Otherwise, you're a slippery slide. Yeah. So that's where the Commissioner comes in, and where the Commission comes in terms of what are the implications.
And so it has to be that bottom line, doesn't it?
Because we get fined, we get pursued on other grounds in different families, different categories. If we're not up to scratch on an environmental issue, which fair enough, we take our medicine and we adjust and get our directives transposed and try and do it properly. Yes. But there has to be consequences. And
of course, this goes very much fundamentally to the laws and to the values of the European Union. Just another area, Taoiseach, that's kind of linked to what we've been talking about. The whole area of diversity, equality and inclusion, EDI or DEI, as some would call it, that has come under a huge attack, I suppose, by ideologues, particularly in the United States. Now, where Dublin Pride is concerned, I'm glad to say that the vast majority, my understanding is that the vast majority of corporate entities have very much stayed true to their allyship, and they're still very supportive and very vocal. Unfortunately, there's been a minority of corporates who have actually backed away, and I think, and I suppose, parse my words carefully, it does feel as a betrayal to the community, in the sense that it's not seen as authentic allyship. It's seen as kind of supporting only when the political move, let's say, was going in a certain direction. Can I ask you, Taoiseach, because those initiatives like EDI, it's proven actually, it's right in principle to encourage diversity, I think, but also it's proven to work. The more that you encourage diversity, the evidence is so overwhelming. Would the Irish government, I suppose, defend the whole diversity, equality and inclusion approach? Is that something that, again, we want to do?
Well, in our strategy, we've articulated the need to continue with this, affirm it. Yeah. I was at a conference recently hosted in Dublin Castle on diversity and inclusion. Forgive me, but it was a 30%, I think.
Women for election?
No, 30% club, I think, is right. in terms of, but what was interesting there was the large turnout.
Yeah.
Now, it was whispered around the place that certain companies are under pressure and they're changing maybe the language they use, but they're still maintaining their support. Look, I'm less, you said you chose your language carefully. A lot of companies are under pressure, surprisingly so. I mean, all companies will tell you that a diversity inclusive model leads to a more productive workforce.
Yeah.
And more relaxed and happy place.
Yeah.
And that's what you see now. Like when you go to the Googles of this world, or go to the major companies we have, be it digital companies in particular, pharma, it is really a diverse workforce.
Yes.
Which is and a happy one as a result. Yes. I was amazed when I went recently to LinkedIn. I went to the diversity of the workforce, and everyone was really happy and kind of people in their space and in themselves. So it is, I mean, when I mentioned about 10 years ago things are on a high, I just feel a reaction coming. I did history as an undergraduate and postgraduate, so I tend to sometimes be philosophical about these things. That things come in waves, you get counter reactions. And there is a counter reaction going on at the moment, which is manifesting itself in some of these policies and some of these initiatives, and people really targeting DEI and the whole diversity inclusion model.
Yes.
I think that will relent, or not relent maybe, but that will ease. That's my prediction. And maybe there are lessons to be learned as well in terms of how we interact and how society kind of brings everybody with them on a journey as well. So there may have been a sense that certain people felt threatened by it.
So it's the manner perhaps, but the principle certainly is.
But the principle is fine. I'm just wondering, our lessons, we have to try and evaluate how is society moving in this direction. Like 10 years ago, at a doorstep of the media, there would have been no issue around this. Now it's being raised. Well, and that's fine, and I deal with it, and I don't have any issue, but it's interesting the angle that things are coming from and the perspective. And I know that this interview will be replayed in a different forum, and people will draw those conclusions. It was interesting, a speech I gave in 2021, I just used the phrase that Ireland was never homogenous. This was probably relates to the migration debate. Right. It's kind of interesting then, 2025 someone picks it up and puts it online, and then they falsely link it to somebody else has mentioned mongrels. Just an illustration of how things get distorted. It's the world we're in.
It's the toxicity, the online space.
And this is kind of, and I said to one of the journalists who asked me about it, I said this in 2021. It was in a historical context.
Yes.
Normans, Vikings, big Irish themselves, all of that. And he said it was consternation. I said, no, it wasn't. No one said it were for 4 years. So sorry for digressing. But my point is, we are in a space where there's distortion, where there's misinformation. I think one initiative we could take, and it's something we do in schools, and I'm very encouraged with schools. So, I was in a primary school 2 weeks ago in Cork, and they had a lovely prize for kindness. And it came from a late priest who was killed in an accident. It was called the Father Cronin Prize for Kindness. Right. And who won it? But the Cultural Committee. Okay. Made up of an Indian, a young child, Ukrainian, Irish, one or two others. And it was about bringing people in.
But does that speak, Taoiseach, I think that speaks to your point about the counter-reaction, in the sense that there is regression happening. Yeah. In many parts of the world.
We must double down against regression.
And actually, that's the term I was actually going to say. It's for countries who believe in those values to double down even more.
Oh yeah, we make no apologies for our policies. We shouldn't.
Absolutely.
We were better for it. Like, I remember well the year or two after marriage equality. Remember the actual debate was a lovely time in Ireland. Yeah. People really felt they belonged.
And
for the first time in a long time, a lot of people who, I remember going to one debate during that referendum, or one debate with people, people wanted to express their positions, but there were members of the LGBT community plus from the 1980s in Ireland. By the time I grew up myself in college, I had no idea they felt so marginalised and their lives were very difficult. But there's the marginalisation, the cultural marginalisation of the sense that they didn't belong. And that's stayed with me. And I think marriage equality was more than just about marriage, it was about bringing people in from the margins.
Absolutely.
And we're all part of the one society. And I don't ever want to lose that again. Or never have people feel that they should be, they have that sense about themselves. That applies to trans as well.
Yes.
No one should ever feel that they don't belong.
Indeed, and I think that's it. It's that sense of belonging. Just before we move to it, because I know our time is limited, the vast majority of the public, I think, still very much support the principles of equality, support the LGBT plus community. It's just there's now more attempts to kind of sow division, culture war. It's all this kind of culture war discourse and this kind of toxicity. You said something at the very outset of the interview, which I think is quite correct. You said that you think that there's an element who are not happy, let's say, with the direction society was going in, that more kind of socially progressive, inclusive direction, who have kind of become more kind of entrenched in their positions. I do believe that's true. They're louder, their voices are being amplified, encouraged in some respects online, but they're very loud, and that needs to be dealt with. But it would be wrong to say that they're reflective of the broad population. I think you concur with that.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I'm not picking this up on the street. I'm not picking it up in communities. I'm not picking it up in general discussions. If I go to a match, the people are getting on with life. The culture war thing, I've been very anti it because it's strong in Britain and strong in the US.
Exactly.
Hasn't come here as much.
Yes.
There's too many activists in the UK on this stuff.
Yes.
And Ireland should just avoid it. We have our ways of doing things. We should keep on the direction of travel that we began 2 decades ago or more. Make no apology for what we've achieved.
Yes.
And keep on going.
Well, Taoiseach, you have kind of preempted what I was going to, because back in 2022, I think our second interview, you talked about that kind of toxic discourse coming from the US and the UK in particular, and you said, you wanted no part of it. I'm glad to hear you now actually reaffirm that in 2025, when some of that debate has become even more polarising and become more difficult, that you're still firmly of the view that how we pursue the issues here, we shouldn't follow what's happening in the US and the UK, particularly on transgender issues.
Yeah, and I'd be very clear. People say to me now and again, maybe you should, nuance your position more politically and all that. And I said, no, I'm not going back. Well, my view is my views aren't going to change now. In terms of how I look at society, and it's about the dignity of every human being. That's what it's about.
Yes,
that's it. We all have one life. Life goes fast. We don't really. We should cherish life. Enable people to try and fulfil their life potential to the best of his or her ability or they. And we should do. That's what we should be about as a society. And I do worry about young people who LGBT plus or trans, and the evidence is beginning to show in the mental health area are under huge pressure.
Yes.
And that's what the data is showing. That there's greater self-harm, for example, among younger people. And that speaks to a lack of or fear or a sense that they don't belong, or that they're subject to maybe bullying as well, and all sorts of commentary and so on. And so therefore we have to look at it in the context of the individual person and the dignity of every individual. Respect that, and then help people.
And we can be very proud, thankfully, of the marriage equality referendum, the Gender Recognition Act, which, as I said, went through. There was, it was debated. It was actually very good debate in the committees here, and there was little controversy, and nothing terrible has happened since. And then suddenly, because again, I would say the proxy culture wars happening in other countries, our Gender Recognition Act, which actually, Taoiseach, you'll probably be glad to hear, is actually in line with most Western, or how the direction of travel of most Western European countries. Unfortunately, the UK has proven to be an outlier lately, and the United States is a whole other situation. But Ireland actually is in the vanguard in terms of recognising the right of transgender people, to have that self-determination and
and we have to be and we do have to work on the model of care, the health care. We have to listen to different expert, evidence-based approaches. I'm open to that. This is an evolving situation. I think HSE are going to develop a more comprehensive model of care, health care as well, which is important. But we don't need to import this kind of toxic culture war debate into Ireland.
Yes.
I would be very resistant against that, and have been, and will continue to be. We don't need that kind of a debate, in my view. It's not even a debate; it's a kind of attitude that we want to be in, kind of in almost aggressive approach to these issues.
And certainly no question of taking.
That's your point.
So, Taoiseach, now just very briefly, I just want to look at some of the issues within, or some of the commitments within the programme for government.
Yeah.
You mentioned there that Europe, in certain cases, cases are being taken against us. One of those cases would concern the updating or incitement to hatred legislation.
Yeah.
So back in May, the European Commission said that Ireland could actually be taken to the European Court of Justice if we don't update our laws in this area. We very much welcome, I say we, the LGBT plus community and the Coalition Against Hate Crime, welcome to the Hate Offences Act. So for the first time now we're no longer an outlier, Ireland has hate crime legislation. We were very disappointed to see that the modernising hate speech provisions being removed. And that's something I think that does need to be revisited, Taoiseach, because the current law, the 89 law, isn't fit for purpose. People who have been through the system will tell you that, criminal justice practitioners will tell you that, and now we have the European Commission saying that Ireland, needs to modernise its laws here. Can I get your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think that the legislature probably did fall victim to that, what we discussed earlier in terms of debate, so getting the hate crime and the sentencing and all that through was a positive.
Yeah.
The Minister, I talked to Mr. Justice about this. It isn't the strategy that we would update the 1989 Act.
That's right.
And modernise it. Because in the 1989 Act, there is an incitement to hatred crime.
Yes.
Which deals with, in respect of hate, in respect of incitement to hatred, in respect of sexual orientation, and much other, attacking travellers or hate speech in respect of any ethnic group. My understanding is the Minister believes the Commission isn't quite accurate, but it's a matter we're going to have to work out and deal with the Commission on. We want to be in compliance with the European framework, but within the Justice Department, I believe, I understand, and I'll clarify this further later on, as we go through this, that in our common law provisions, we have moved much further than the Commission recognises. But in any event, the 89 Act probably was undermined a bit in the sense that it probably wasn't given the credence it deserved. It was a very far-seeing act back in 1989, when you think of the debate we're having today. But probably in terms of online and so on, that needs modernisation.
Well, that's the key part, exactly. It is in the sense that I think I checked this before I came in, there's been 5 convictions under the 89 Act. So that's, 5 convictions in over 35 years. It's seen as very difficult to enforce. And I think, government, the previous government that you were part of it, conceded that it did need to be updated, it did need to be modernised. So, I could really impart that on you, Taoiseach.
Yeah, but the strategy has committed to the modernisation of that Act.
Okay, so that is, so I'm going to say, hopefully it kind of saves sooner rather than later.
I'm going to follow this up with the Minister for Justice.
If you could, because it's very much
not just for equality.
Not just the view of the LGBT plus community, but actually the Coalition Against Hate Crime, which represents a broad spectrum of groups who advocate for minority communities. We are of the view that the law of this area, it's not an attack on freedom of speech, but when you reach that high threshold of inciting...
I think there wasn't a legitimate issue of debate there, I would concede, in terms of making sure we protect, which we do anyway in the Constitution, freedom of speech, but perhaps in clarifying that and articulating that could have done a better job.
And I think you're right. I think broadly, though, it fell victim to the misinformation and to the culture war stuff. And I think the voices who are impacted directly by this issue were kind of crowded out by that kind of misinformation, those who need the protections of the law. So we'll watch this space carefully. It's definitely something we'll continue campaigning on. Finally, Taoiseach, just for another issue, if I may, conversion practices, the need to ban so-called conversion therapy. That was in the Fianna Fáil manifesto, your election manifesto, then subsequently into the Programme for Government. Other countries have done this now, so I suppose we can look to other jurisdictions. Is that something we can expect?
Yeah, my understanding is work is already underway in respect of that, and that the Minister and the AG are considering it. Obviously, it would take time, but yes, we've put it to government for a reason, so we will follow through on it. It's not the legislative for it.
Exactly. I think having a legislative ban is so important, and I think in this term of government, that's something that would be a priority for the LGBT plus community. It's a form of torture. The United Nations considers it so, and actually research that last government commissioned showed that it's not as happening, thankfully, as it would have in the past, perhaps, but it is actually, as we sit here today, is happening. That's hugely concerning.
In Ireland?
Yes, and that's what the Trinity research showed from Trinity College. Not hugely, but I think one case is one case too many. And I think even banning this practice would send out a very important message. And of course, unlike maybe a jurisdiction near us, that this would be fully trans-inclusive, and that it would be comprehensive. Taoiseach, as we wrap up, do you have a message for our audience? I know you're going to be marching in Pride on the 28th of June, which is wonderful to see the government doing that. Yeah, do you have a message for our audience?
Just to say that we will continue to affirm the LGBT plus community, and we will continue to build on the progress that we've made, and as I said earlier, to advance equality, to advance respect, the dignity of every human being, and to advocate and be a strong advocate internationally for LGBT plus communities across the world, and be positive and progressive about that, and also to enjoy the parade.
Taoiseach, we look forward to seeing you on the 28th of June, and thank you very much.
Take care.
Taoiseach Micheál Martin.
All the best. Thank you very much. Thank you.